So, good evening. We are going to continue the conversation that we started, and what the trains are going behind me, so you're going to get the feedback of the train. But our conversation is really pertaining, it is a meditation class, as you know. And my name is Misoon, just in case you forgot. Anyway, it is the Are You Living Conscious Life? And the questions that I ask, and we're going to be teasing out, is what does a conscious life looks like? What do we need to do to live conscious life? And it sounds really, really simple, but it's not like something that you go to the store and you buy it and then you put them in the right slot. It is work. It is lifetime work. Every single day is that deciding that sometimes I refer to it as like artists who have a painting in your mind of what kind of painting you want to draw, or the sculpturist who wants to create a beautiful sculpture, but you know exactly what has to be, size of a marble, size of whatever the stone that you're going to use, what kind of tool that you need, and you have to wake up every day and you work toward that. So to become the kind of human being that we want to be and comfortable in this own skin, it is really nothing short of that. Maybe becoming a famous sculpturist or the beautiful painter might be easier than disciplining yourself and finding yourself and creating yourself of that center, peaceful, loving, fair, just human being for the world as well as ourselves, right? So they're just breaking up the piece by piece because of how we show up in the world, you know, the things I do, or little lies we tell. So this class is really about examining. As my grandmother said, you don't start it as a cow thief, you start it as a needle thief. So even just the slightest lie that you tell, nobody knows, but you know, and how that's going to influence how we behave, or that how we get used to become callous and emotionally. And so far what I have to say is pretty simple, but that took long time work to fully understand, embrace, and live that life. Or what's it like that when you show up every single day and live your life as though it is the first day and it is the last day? What does that look like? And if you're truly living in this moment, knowing that everything can be over in a minute, and everybody has that situation in our lives. Or my friend tells me, oh, my nephew got a new girlfriend, and then somehow with the old boyfriend there was a scuffle, and they had a gun, and both of them end up dying. It's a matter of a second. It was just a date that he went on or whatever, and two lives were completely over. And that sounds like story that we hear in the news or whatever. But until it happens to you, and there's so many lives that we don't know what's behind people's lives. When I hear, well, somebody says, oh, my husband's going through a surgery. Well, I saw them last week and they was fine, but then all of a sudden they're going through a surgery, my mother is sick, or this. So what we have to deal with the day-to-day basis, we like our stories to be written very like a diary, you know, the day one, day two, and it's all laid out. But the truth of the matter is life is not like that at all. So to live conscious life really is the showing up at this moment. And really, how do you live clean slate, that's showing up doing the best you can? That best does not mean that you did anything, whatever the definition of perfect is, right? Because again, it's just a definition. But when you show up and you do the very best you can, and you may end up doing a finger painting of an entire wall, I'm just using as a metaphor. But if that was the best you can do, then you have to find the peace in that and also joy in that, like I did it. Because tomorrow, if you're lucky enough to show up and you're above ground, your painting will improve, your finger painting will improve. But you haven't got there yet. So right now, instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I can't get there, this, and then you can't, instead of looking at it, oh, I have a paint. Okay, I have some imagination, and you draw, and finding joy in the gift of a paint, gift of a canvas, gift of a whatever it is. Or that I have lived this way for a long, long time. That doesn't mean when the last day comes, I'm not going to say, oh, can I have just a little bit more? But same time that every human being that I encounter, at any given moment, always in the back of my head, this could be the last person I shall see to the end this life, or I could be the last person they will see. And do I want to create any havoc? Do I want to create any suffering for them from whatever place that I'm coming from? So I always try. It could be a simple smile. It could be a wave. It could be opening the door. It could be just whatever it is of that kindness. Because that kindness, it isn't necessarily about that person. Actually, it's for me, because when I find out, like say that was that person, they had a cancer, let's say I find that out, and I was not as kind as I should have, or understanding, I would feel bad. Or if something, if they happen to die or anything, I would feel bad saying, oh, I should have been nicer. Well, why did you need to be nicer because they were going through suffering? Why don't we just show up and be nice? And hopefully that everybody else feel the same way as you do as you live your life. Being kind and being thoughtful, being compassionate. Then we don't have a regret. Now that sounds really, really simple. It is work, because sometimes we show up, sometimes you get up in the morning, if you're lucky enough to get up, you don't even want to get out of bed, never mind. You might ache all over, and that's the last thing you want. There's one more thing to do, or get into the car to go to work and find out your tire had a flat, and all those things can go wrong. But it's a day, it will pass. But you don't sink your teeth in it and say, oh my God, my days are bad and this is happening to me, blah, it goes on and on and on. Because again, that is the work of a conscious life. Because I would oftentimes used to ask people, there's a 365 days in a year. There's a 24-hour every day, if you're lucky enough. Then there's times I used to add up those hours, like how long you been alive? And then I would take all the days and calculate. Out of all the days, so that's 365 days a year, so 10 years or 3,650 days. Then if you turn that into hours of all those days, was it half bad and half good, or was it 3/4 bad and then 1/4 good? So when you look at it that way, ultimately we will all realize we have far more good days than bad days. But we have a tendency to chew under what is not pleasant and thinking that is like an end of the world, right? And that could be a story about what happened to us. It could be anything. But it might have taken 3 days or 3 months or 6 months of your life. It was just horrific. But it's only 6 months, not 60 years of your life, not 30 years of your life, or whatever your age is. So this is, and how do we get to that place that we find, say, oh, okay. So that's, to tease this out is what conscious life is. And when I asked last week the question, and I think it was a week before as well, is that 3 persons said, oh, no, I wouldn't choose this life if I knew what was waiting for me. And only 1 person said yes. And the last week, 1 person, other new person, said she wasn't quite sure. But other person said still yes. So this is what this class is, and this is what the conscious life is. So it's enough about that, and just keeping it somewhat brief. Have you had a chance to think through more in-depthly? Because as we go through, right, but you recognizing that you showed up in the very best you can, even the definition, thinking this is not a good enough at the time, perhaps, like I should do better and that. Right. But as you look back and you realize all the things that you thought you weren't doing best, but you still showed up at the best you can. So does that lend a little more compassion, or you might have for everybody?
For everyone,
like, so,
myself included.
yeah. So as you begin to recognize it, like, oh, Because I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had a very clear rule, like, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. If they're not that way, I'm not going to accept them because that's not right, and et cetera, et cetera. But by that age, they should have gotten X, Y, and Z, so I cannot tolerate. So my conversation with that person is, yeah, I said, you seem to have always is a good friend of mine. I said, you're clear on that, and I admire that quality. But on the other hand, to do the work in this life, because really what I'm learning more than ever, it is that we are here to love others, to make this world a better place, whether that's acceptable or not. That is my purpose of life. If I'm just here to amuse myself to that, I see it as, for what? But there's so many people on this earth that being compassionate, being loving, actually end up being loving to ourselves, but having a patience, recognizing that I was like that once.
Yes.
And so consequently, it may take somebody a little bit longer to get there, but nobody's hopeless. Right, and also when you look back, when you don't know better, you don't do better, right? When you know better, hopefully we do better. But I think it's just when you, and again, I mean, I can dive into the past lives or the future that isn't here yet, but we are work in progress. And so if I have come this far, and just like playing with the children, it's not to say children is less, of course not. What it is, what they don't know until they learn, until they are given the opportunity, until you show them compassion and love, that they're not going to learn. If you just say, okay, this is how you do X, Y, and Z, and if you can't do it, you can't cut the mustard or whatever, and you just kind of cast them out. What kind of world would that be? And actually the kind of world that we are living somewhat. Either you rise or you don't. But really, at the end of the day, is we are all teachers. We are all students. As I used to say, we are all sinners and the saints. We're not one or the other completely. And it is not enough that we accept saying, oh, I want to live conscious life. But in order to live conscious life is that extraordinary honesty with yourself, because you can't lie. You can lie to other people, but you always know the truth. And that yucky feeling that you feel that deep down inside is that something you can't get away from, because you know when you didn't do it right, when you know when you weren't fair. So it's that sharp edge of a knife that you learn to live this life, that more than anything else, that being the best you can be, working on that, creating that masterpiece, and that masterpiece is you. And then you may have to break lots of marbles, or you may have to break lots of eggs to cook omelet, or whatever it is. So you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to fall a lot. But they're learning the capacity to apologize, saying it is a difference between that because you are sorry, that doesn't mean that you are less. It is that, oh my goodness, I'm sorry that I didn't realize that I didn't, that what I was doing. And when you show up and honestly and apologize that way, it makes you feel better too. Because you're not fighting with that ego, thinking that if I apologize, that means they're going to think I'm weak, or they're going to think this, or they're going to think, because all those things that you're not really doing for their sake. You're doing it for your own sake when you think about it, because then you can go to bed and you can close your eyes. And because, I think a little bit is in our earlier conversation, is when you feel like there's somebody who can save your life because you can't save yourself, you feel inferior. You feel less than. But if you can empower yourself, that you can do all those things for yourself, you may have to go through a lot to learn the lessons. But that sense of that I am, that I am beautiful, that I am handsome, that I am creative, and however way it show up, and because that is such a extraordinary sense of peace and joy that you will learn, because all the things that we say that I'm not, It doesn't bring you, you can convince yourself any way you want, but it doesn't bring you any more joy. So what's the point of it? If you're not perfect at something, work on the getting perfect, if that's what your definition is. But keep telling yourself, I'm no good at this, and I'm this, and I'm that, and somebody else says, that's just like a self-flagellation. Is that how you say it, right? Over and over. What does that get you? Other than lose your time, the 24 hours that is given to us. So this is what this particular class is all about. It is that capacity to show up, share with each other. And again, not everybody has to know what's going through your head or your heart or whatever else. But it is that you trying to frame it so you can understand why you do what you do, why I do what I do. And so this is what this class is. We're still working towards it. But yeah, the conscious life. So again, that question that I ask is, if you have chosen this life, knowing that all you have encounter, it was going to come. It's not like you're going in there's 1,000 choices and you said, oh, I think I'm just going to choose the miserable one. Nobody does that. But for whatever the reason that we need to go through this journey, and for that matter, in your count, your limited choice is that suffering or that mountain or this. So within that, again, you make a best choice. We show up in a grocery store, and if you only have $100 to buy the grocery, you're going to stand there and make the best choice you can for the $100 grocery. But you're not go to grocery stores saying, you know what, I only have $100 and I can't get that many things. So to me, it's like, I know I'm putting it really simply, but to me, that's coming to life is that given within our choice of a limited choice, and if I do really, really well, I will have a better choice. I'll have a bigger savings. I can go in the bigger pool. So honestly, this is work that I have figured out and found out. So this is the journey that we are on, and I hope this was helpful to you, and then to people who are here and people who are going to be watching this. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Thank you.